On May 9, 2001, at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., an unusual and unprecedented event took place. Over 20 individuals from the highest levels of the U.S. military, intelligence and aerospace industries, NASA international air traffic controllers, scientists, radar operators, pilots, and other experts with rarefied credentials and extremely high security clearances all came together to share their experiences concerning extraterrestrials and UFOs. The focus of this conference, put together by Dr. Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project, was to promote open hearings in Congress dealing with UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena going back over 50 years. It was an astonishing series of testimonies. Here were a couple dozen seriously credible witnesses coming forth on the national stage to talk about the most bizarre events imaginable. Objects under intelligent control doing impossible maneuvers at thousands of miles per hour.
What they did was coalesce and started rotating in a circle, and then they disappeared.
Glowing red orbs, disabling nuclear missiles deep underground.
And this time it was a more intense tone in the guard's voice. Is very clearly very frightened. He said there was a bright, glowing red object hovering outside the front gate. We lost somewhere between 6 and 8 weapons that morning.
Alien structures on the moon.
And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers.
An ET pilot killed on an Air Force runway.
There's been UFOs in the pattern all night. They're on radar. But in any case, an alien had come off the craft and had been shot by a military policeman and apparently was wounded and was heading for McGuire.
Dozens of incredibly surreal accounts right out of a Spielberg film. But the witnesses are all dead serious, highly intelligent professionals of rank and stature, and in fact were in these positions because of their quality of mind and character. Several had concrete evidence to back up their claims and were all willing to testify under oath before the US Congress. Over 30 international news organizations recorded and broadcast the event. The exceptional nature of this gathering and straightforward at times emotional testimonies begged the mind-bending question, what if they're telling the truth? One of these witnesses, an aeronautics illustrator named Mark McCandlish, had several high-level security clearances and worked for organizations such as Rockwell International, Boeing, and the US Air Force. He'd spent over a decade in research and development on the main focus of the NPC event, technologies connected to UFOs and extraterrestrial vehicles. His detailed technical illustration of a purportedly reverse-engineered alien craft, the Flux Liner, a strange flying disc shown at a secret US Air Force air show in 1988, was a highlight of the conference.
These discs were hovering off the floor without any visible means of support. They were referred to as alien reproduction vehicles, also nicknamed the Flux Liner because they used high voltage electricity. This is a diagram that I made based on a sketch that Brad Sorensen did for me in rough form, and subsequently cleaned that drawing up and made it much more accurate.
This is his story.
He says, I gave you the basic verbal description of what I saw. He says, but somehow or other you've taken everything, all the information I gave you, and you have graphically interpreted into an image that is so close and so accurate. He said, this is really dangerous stuff here.
Deanne Divis with United Press International. Could you please address the vehicle that there was a drawing displayed of? Why would this vehicle be on display at an air show? What is the power source that you are asserting is going to be so very useful? And how can you determine that this vehicle is not something that is being developed, by a government agency?
In fact, I think that was the testimony. This is an alien reproduction vehicle, and just to be clear, this means that it is based on advanced anti-gravity and zero-point energy propulsion systems. They are being manufactured by a consortium of companies that include Lockheed Martin, Northrop, SAIC, and other corporations. But this is not a jet internal combustion system at all. It is actually kicked in by a type of electric power source, and it then accesses this ambient zero-point energy field that is responsible for all matter and energy existing, and by special configurations and what have you, it causes a cancellation of mass inertia and an anti-gravity effect. They do have superluminal capacity, in other words, faster than the speed of light capacity. I think Mr. McCandlish and other witnesses that he's identified could go into more of the technical physics of it.
My name is Mark McCandlish, and for the better part of the last 30 years I've been a conceptual artist, illustrator, and designer, working predominantly for the aerospace and defense industries. About 1988, I came into some information that indicated that the United States government was in possession of and operating a kind of anti-gravity technology through a system, an aircraft that was referred to as the flux liner or as the alien reproduction vehicle. The story dates back to the late 70s when I was going to college at Art Center College of Design, studying transportation and automotive design. Had a friend there by the name of who had a number of classes with. I switched over to an illustration major before I left. I spent a short time working in the special effects industry in Hollywood, and then left that job to work in the defense industry for General Dynamics. Spent some time working there as a conceptual artist and designer, illustrating weapon systems, and then after a couple of years left that facility and began freelancing throughout the defense and aerospace industry. So that was where it all started.
In the early to mid-1980s, Mark's career as an aeronautical and technical illustrator began taking off as he accumulated a client list including the US Air Force, Rockwell International, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and respected periodicals such as Popular Science magazine. He became well-versed in conceptual design at the highest levels of the US military, industrial, and aerospace programs, and often called upon to generate classified and highly proprietary material.
At the time, this was around 1985, 1986, and I had been freelancing for about 4 years at that point. Done a lot of work for Lockheed, a lot of work for Rockwell, and a little bit of work for Boeing. And so I was establishing a reputation, and had occasion to talk to an awful lot of experts in the field, in various parts of the aerospace industry, so I had an idea of what was going on in terms of the technological development that was occurring in the industry at the time. Worked on some conceptual artwork showing cutaways of some of the weapon systems and how the components inside those weapon systems interrelated to one another. I was given a lot of information. Many times I was asked to create illustrations for clients based on just verbal descriptions of what they wanted to see, because a lot of it was conceptual artwork that was supposed to put across the idea that, say, a particular aircraft that they were designing was going to be extremely fast, so it had to have all the sort of dynamic characteristics of what a really fast aircraft would have, and I had an idea of what these things looked like, so I was subscribing to some of the trade publications that were available at that time, like Aviation Week and Space Technology, and